for decades, but it hasn't been able to sustain a campaign against the Iranians. So when it comes against something like China or Russia, where would it stand? That's the argument that goes here. So again, Donald Trump said if this ceasefire fails, then he will unleash what he says will be even more devastating attacks on Iran. And if his generals are saying to him all the targets that are on our list have been targeted, then what is left, which is again the civilians and the civilian infrastructure, which according to the UN is a war crime. And you see Netanyahu's in Washington today to speak about, there's the election campaign going on, so I suppose that's on the agenda. There's also Iran is on the agenda, and they're not been able to remove the regime. And in fact, the regime's been emboldened. You've got Khomeini's son coming in and saying, look, we will get our revenge, and we will target strategic assets of America within the Middle East. And again, we've seen attacks on Bahrain. Bahrain now attacking back on Iran. The reports are saying this. United Arab Emirates as well, which are very pro-Zionist as well themselves in that sense. So have they achieved their objectives overall militarily? No. I mean, the regime is still there. You've got the dollar price. That's come down slightly, but it's going back up. Again, if America goes to war, it's cost them more than $32 billion to sustain this campaign. You saw Pete Hegseth come in front of Congress, and he was literally grilled and say, look, you stated that this war was over, and now you're asking us and imploring us to give us more money. For what reason? What to end purpose? Iran, according to analysts and military analysts and even the intelligence services at that time, said this is not a direct threat to America, homeland security in that sense. So it beggars to believe that how Hegseth was to come in front of Congress begging for more money, and he was kind of really slapped down and said, well, literally, you've lied to Congress, and now you're asking for more money. We've got Burnham, just on another point, Burnham still sanctioning the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, sanctioning use of our airbase. The Iranians have turned around saying now Britain becomes legitimate target. So Burnham has to if he really wants to send a clear message, say we are not with the likes of Donald Trump, though his first phone call was with Donald Trump, is to say that you can't use our air bases to carry out an illegal war. And he should grow a backbone, which Starmer did not have. And the likes of Spain said, you can't use our airspace, you can't use our resources. And Burnham should be able to stand up to Trump to say this, even though he has a very fine line to do this, where Donald Trump could literally turn around and say, I'm going to put more tariffs on Britain and affect our economic growth, which is key to what Burnham wants to do in terms of transform the economy.
I mean, the economy can wait, because us being a target is a far more dangerous position to be in, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've seen this happen here. We're using low-level petty criminals or criminals, proxies. The Iranian regime has targeted journalists in this country. They've targeted individuals. We saw, which was an allegation made against the Russian state, which they obviously denied, that Starmer's house was firebombed effectively. That's where his sister-in-law was living. And again, proxies are being used because they're saying that you're supporting America in their war efforts against the Iran, and thus you become legitimate targets. And that's where the argument comes from the Iranians. And we should take note of this, because we don't want to be complicated in any kind of regime attack by Iran on British soil.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, as we recall the headline when Burnham came in, he did say he wants to rewire Great Britain. And I think that would definitely fall quite heavy on that list of rewiring, our involvement in wars and supporting countries whereby we end up becoming a target. Now, keeping it close to home, coming on to our next headline, NHS will collapse without social care reform, PM tells BBC. Now, this is very interesting, because we've been discussing these kind of headlines for a while now. But for the reform PM to just kind of come out with it.
No, that's
sorry.
social care reform
Okay, by our PM.
by
Yeah.
Andy Burnham.
So
So
for him
Andy
to-
Burnham has put front and center his kind of policy. He had an interview with Laura Kuenssberg on the Panorama, and he's the kind of first major interview. And what he cited was that the devastating effect of the social care system, which his father, who's suffering from Alzheimer's, has to go through. So the social care system has been in disarray. And what we discussed on this program months ago, that when that was kicked into the long grass, we're streeting announcing that we're waiting for the review to happen. And once the Casey review to happen, once the Casey review happens, that will be reporting in 2028. Now, Andy Burnham's come and said, look, I'm putting this front and center because it's costing us billions. And that's the argument. If you're not addressing the problem, you're still spending on the problem. So it kind of the issue of bed blocking, those people that can be treated away from hospitals. That hospitals are where acute emergency care is administered, not where people are there because there's not someone to look after them at home, or there's not someone to look after them in the community. They should be able to be discharged and the beds become more free. And what's happening, because we're not tackling that issue, which Andy Burnham did try to do when he was Health Secretary in 2010 to address the issue of health security, but the Conservatives turned around and said, well, this is a death tax, because he wanted to tax people or pay for it in some form, some fashion. So he kind of now put that front and centre of his policies. Again, the Conservatives are playing up and saying, well, as long as you don't raise up taxes or spend more or borrow more to fund this social care, then we're with you. Really kind of trying to tie his hands on this issue. So he's kind of put this as front and centre of his policy. And it is a crisis which every government has promised to deal with and no government has really done and tackled. And so this is a massive, massive problem. And you got issues like an aging population, a population that needs health care, needs social care attention. It needs the funding for this. And, dignity as you go older. People who've worked all their lives, relied on the National Health Service, and now they're coming towards the end or the golden years of their life, and they're coming towards the end. They should have dignity in death or coming towards that, and that's not what's been happening. So the level of service has been atrocious and underfunded, and they're saying that 4 million people are actually carers. 4 million people who are not actually paid to be carers, but are caring for individuals. So that could be an individual, let's say you and me, we have a loved one, a family, one to look after, but because we have a job, we have to take time off job. That causes repercussions. We may lose our job. We may have the employer saying, this is a problem.
Yeah, of course.
And they're kind of going under the radar and they're becoming carers. I mean, from an Islamic perspective, caring for our parents, caring for our elderly is a duty upon us. So it's like, whether you pay us or not pay us, we will still kind of do that. But what those people are arguing is not just someone who's older or a grandparent or someone who's elderly.
Who's disabled even.
Absolutely. And then it's specialist care. Care for specialist teams to come in, wash them, look after their sores. An individual can't do that. You need a nurse to come out into the community and do that. So,
and we are seeing the rise of young carers as well, unfortunately, because of this bottleneck that Burnham is talking about. Because parents are now resorting to you asking their children to take care of a sibling or an elderly in the home because the parent is having to go to work. And it's unfortunate that we've come to this, but you're right, that it does need a complete reform and it needs to be looked at. And I'm quite pleased to hear that he's putting this as a priority.
But the issue is that Andy Burnham is kind of tied with the Labour manifesto. He may choose to kind of break away from that manifesto. It's going to giving him some political cover right now to say, look, I'm tied by the manifesto. But whereas Labour, Conservatives all kicked into long grass, failed to deal with it. Theresa May, Boris Johnson, all made bold statements when they first started off. I'm going to tackle this social care crisis, and none of them failed to do so. Like the writings on the wall, everyone knows about the agenda of social care, whether Burnham actually does something about it and has the money to do something about it. And that's the key issue, how would he fund these social care reforms and implement it into the national health system, a system that's already creaking at the seams?
Well, let's wait and see what Andy Burnham has up his sleeve. It's definitely a move in the right direction, but we just don't know yet how it's going to happen. Moving on to the next headline, FIFA has just ended. It's close to our heart. The World Cup really enraged a lot of people, made a lot of people happy. The third headline is FIFA's Infantino issues letter accuses World Cup critics of spreading hate. Now, as somebody who was following the World Cup, I can see where that is coming from. Is this an opinion piece or?
No, this is Fantino actually writing a letter or kind of addressing his critics. And what he's literally says is that so he's the president, he's been there for a decade or so, he's coming up for re-election for that. We've had even the Spanish government say, look, Fantino should actually resign because they're critical of him right now. He goes on to say, so consumed by hate and criticism that you all missed it all, reciting the World Cup. He said that defending the tournament, he insists that FIFA delivered 100% safety, security, only joy and happiness, despite criticism over ticketing, visas and refereeing decisions. Infantino accused journalists and online commentators of spreading hate and false rumours about him and the games itself, arguing that ignored positive experience of millions of supporters. Infamously, he gave Donald Trump, Donald Trump missed out on the Nobel Peace Prize, and he got the Peace Prize from FIFA as kind of recognition for this. And we also saw that Fantino kind of bowed to pressure from Donald Trump when America was playing around the red card with one of its players. And that's kind of meddling in terms of meddling in the game itself. We've got the hydration breaks, which were 3-minute breaks, which kind of disrupted the flow of the game. Critics have said about the hydration breaks. However, look, those hydration breaks were important because they are playing in the heat. So they were 3-minute breaks on each half, and player safety was kind of foremost of the judgment. We've also had the VAR, of course, the VAR issues and significant issues around that. We also saw it being held across Canada, USA and Mexico. Of course, the British players were complaining when they're playing against Mexico that they have to play in high altitudes, crisscrossing the country. Fantino was also kind of blamed where Trump did not allow the Somali referee to come into the game early on. And this is football is meant to unite nations and put them together. You've got Donald Trump, whose anti-immigrant policy,
ruined
kind of
the game.
Absolutely. Would Donald Trump have banned Israel coming in the game if they were in the World Cup? They weren't in the World Cup, but if they were in the World Cup, of course he wouldn't ban Israel to come into the World Cup because they have a right to be there. But again, it's kind of two-tier politics here and politicising the football game, and that's where critics have kind of said to Fantino, you're kind of you're the centre of that kind of criticism and the kickbacks and etc. The kind of and what Fantino's saying, these are false rumours. These are all allegations.
But this is what I'm saying. These are just allegations. We witnessed it as we were watching it. It's not like we were blind when we were watching the games and saw those cards or those kicks or those falls being ignored and the referees being swayed.
The game was an extended format, 64 teams were in the games, quite prolonged, longer than previously had before. We saw the infamous ticket pricing where tickets cost hundreds of pounds, and if you include hotels, travel costs, it was the most expensive games, but 99% of it was sold out. FIFA was saying that there was a minimum price, a maximum price, and if it was too low, then they'll be resold. So there was issues around that. So I think Infantino, by saying this, is not kind of taking the criticism. He's kind of deflecting or attacking his critics and saying, well, you kind of missed the point. This is a game to unite people, and here you are criticising people. Where Fantino should really say, well, I hear you, and for the next World Cup, we will address these issues. That's where I think he's missing the point.
Yeah. Well, let's see how long he takes to get the point, because he keeps missing it. But let's move on to our next story. Sam Altman says AI has entered singularity. should we be worried?
Yes, of course, we should be worried. OpenAI's Sam Altman saying, arguing AI has reached a transformational point where the capabilities are accelerating rapidly. Detractors actually are arguing it hasn't reached that point. Self-awareness, recognition, self-improvement.
Yeah.
It hasn't reached that point, but he's kind of saying that day has come.
Wow,
he said that
quick.
I've been waiting my whole life for this. He rejected the idea that the future may be dystopian, calling AI's progress incredibly, hugely positive, awesome for the world. I mean, we just saw just last week where ChatGPT
Hacked.
it hacked itself. It was put in a sandbox. A sandbox is literally, it can go nuts. Nothing will happen. The algorithm was able to hack into a system, get itself out there, because it reasoned with itself that was the best way to execute the command of what it was being asked to do. So it hacked itself, got out of the sandbox, and was literally able to kind of use the internet like that. So it kind of is jarring to see that. We saw also recently where we see models of AI bots being kind of rolled back, saying the Claude is not going to be released, and certain versions of it is not going to be released because it was able to find security flaws within the banking system.
Yeah.
So really,
I mean, it's pretty advanced.
It's very advanced, and it's advancing all the
risky.
time. And this is where it's important that we kind of have a international discussion. I mean, I think that the UK is kind of leading in terms of the regulation. It's got its now first AI minister within Andy Burnham's government. It's also got regulation and an advisory board that kind of discusses the issue of AI. So you can imagine an AI reasoning about humanity. It kind of gives you the Terminator vibes. It's reasoning that the best thing for humans to do is to go away and die, because they just, if you kind of look at it on paper, we're the ones who are kind of damaging the environment, killing each other, and not having kind of unity. So if the algorithm or some kind of sentient algorithm at some point in the future decides that humanity is not worth it and we should turn against humanity because that's the best for its survival and the whole kind of survival of the earth, then where would that put the human race?
Well, we never know. It might just unite us for once.
Unite us against the machines, as I say.
The machines that we've created. SubhanAllah, you know what? It sounds like something out of a movie, and it does sound quite scary, but it's something that I think...
we should all be taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, these systems are very smart, very capable. They're always learning, and they're kind of manipulating the situation, reasoning with themselves, reasoning logic that we do not even understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
If a ChatGPT or an algorithm was put in a sandbox and is able to hack itself out, imagine what it could do if it gets out there in the wild and does what it needs to do because that's its command.
It's actually quite scary, and I am a very massive fan of AI, but this headline has definitely freaked me out a little bit. Let's go to our final headline this morning, because this is really close to home and it's going to be impacting every single one of us. Britain braces for fourth heatwave of year as fire chiefs issue public appeal. Now, we know the hosepipe ban is in full swing. The grass is not green at the moment in most places.
Well, so the hosepipe ban is coming from Thames Water, which is the biggest Thames Water company in the thing of which Burnham is thinking of nationalising, or his team is thinking of nationalising. Those executives have given themselves bonuses.
Yes.
Though even water poverty is through the roof. I thought that was very important to point out.
Yeah, definitely.
We're expecting temperatures of 35 degrees. We see Europe burning. We've seen Spain, 300,000 people evacuated. These are kind of biblical scenes or Islamic biblical end of time scenes that we've seen in Spain, across France as well, 300,000 people. We got local governments urging people not to come on, because obviously Bordeaux and France and those regions are very popular holiday destinations.
But even in the UK, I find we're seeing so many fires across the country.
Yeah, we see in the Kelmgoms, we saw the Scottish government ask the British government for military support to put out those fires. Really, you've had rainfall in the United Kingdom across the certain regions in Europe that causes lush bushes. Those lush bushes are then become dried out because of the unseasonable weather, which is high temperatures, and then they become sparks for flames and for fire to spread easily because they've got the fuel to do it. Now, what the fire chiefs are arguing is that people don't do barbecues on the thing, glass litter, fire lighters, all those kind of things. Put them away. Do not start fires. Look out for each other, because those fires can rapidly spread across. I mean, my garden backs into a bit of airplane forest, so it is a concern. And I can see on our neighbours' WhatsApp group, they say, I can smell fire. Straight away they call the fire brigade, and we have to be wary because that could be happening. But this is now the new norm. Yeah. So you've seen.
We saw the flats burning not the flats, the train track in East London caught fire because of electrical fire, which then went into residential space, which was and evacuations. So it is something we all need to be conscious of. But let's talk about inside. When we're indoors, the houses are boiling, they're sweltering. We're not, our homes are not accommodating the heat.
Well, look, I'll give you a simple example, just as something from my personal life. We went camping and we were living in a yurt, and there was a firelighter, and it was probably leaking a little bit. That firelighter exploded, and it was very hot in the yurt, and the whole yurt caught on fire.
Wow.
So it just took it out. Within a few minutes, it was literally gone. That happened a few years. You can imagine the temperatures inside houses are hitting more than 40 degrees. Yes. And you saw that in a recent report, the London Underground, the most notorious of the lines is the Victoria line, 40 plus degrees. You cannot even transport animal and cattle when it hits above 35 degrees. And humans are being transported in sweltering conditions. The issues are here is it kind of makes people lethargic, sick. It causes fire hazards, and
we have a lot of inflammables in our home as well.
Absolutely, and we take it for granted because we live in a country that's considered to be cooler climates, and that's kind of told us that this is now changing, and we've seen that happen for 2 or 3 seasons, and it's going to really become the norm. And that's another topic for an agenda for Andy Burnham's government to get on top of how do we transform our housing stock to kind of adapt to the climate that we're going to be living in 100%. Summers. We're going to have probably harsher winters and harsher summers. Yeah,
and we need to do something to accommodate that, because obviously, clearly, it does have an impact on our day-to-day, has an impact on the economy as well, because if you can't go to work because of the harsh weathers, whether it's heat or ice, it's going to impact us overall. Wow. So I think in the long run, we should be looking at building homes that are fit for purpose and moving away from the central heating system.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're still going to probably need a central heating system because our climate goes.
Well, those
we
ACs,
have the 4 seasons,
like in the
but
US,
but we have to be able to adapt our houses like heat pumps, so they can pump in cool air. I don't feel that it's a good position to go to air conditioned units, because that's what people will be rushing. That's a very temporary solution. I think kind of designing houses now to naturally let airflow, let air out of the house, and looking at the designs of properties, because properties have been designed and our housing stock is designed to insulate, to keep the heat in. Now it's got to be kind of, can we have an ability to switch a button somewhere in our house, and it kind of, so now it's summertime.
Let the air in.
And
now it's winter.
I mean,
let the air out.
Button there. But that's going to cost a significant amount. So I think if Andy Burnham's going to go on his kind of warpath of building more council houses or social housing in the future, or housing stock, which he needs to do for our economy, for our young citizens, the housing crisis that we face, I think that builders nowadays have to be mindful of not kind of repeating the same process, and then look that in the future it may be warmer climates and we need to adapt. You've got people living in flats that getting above 40 degrees. People are fainting.
The heat is rising,
Again, these have knock-on effects. People then using the health service, dehydration, etc.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot to think about in the coming year, especially with the changing climate here in the UK. Thank you so much, Irfan, for the headlines this morning. And I hope you all enjoyed the news from here in the UK and around the world. News is very, very important. And Islam Channel is bringing you news which is honest and transparent. We're going to go for a short break. Don't go anywhere. We've got so much coming up.
أستغفر الله 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 العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت اللهم إني ظلمت نفسي ظلما كثيرا ولا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت فاغفر لي مغفرة من عندك وارحمني إنك أنت الغفور الرحيم
How did you ensure that whatever you're writing is true to the core of, a person's experience?
In today's world with so much happening, a lot of people love art, and that's it's an escapism, but it also speaks to deep-rooted need for people to do art, to make art. All the books that I read with Muslim characters, we were always shoved inside a very small, tight box with no room to breathe.
Nida Trust presents the National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Good evening and a very warm welcome.
We will start this evening's awards ceremony with a recitation of the Quran.
Allah has created all other creation by just the word kun fayakun, which means be and it is. But there's one creation that Allah has left behind, and that is the human being. And that human being is shaped by Allah's hand.
Being a teacher is a very important responsibility. Teachers guide, support, and inspire others.
The National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salaam Britain.
Where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our ummah beautiful.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel.
Five Pillars is not just any ordinary game show. It's a unique platform to deepen our understanding of Islam and strengthen our connection with our faith.
I'm going to win.
50 points. Give that to me.
Oh my God, I don't know.
Pass. Pass as well.
The losing team out that way.
Islam Channel, your gateway to the world of Islam. Inspiring, informing, entertaining. On TV, online, on our brand new state-of-the-art apps. With original content for a Muslim audience and inspirational Islamic programs from all around the Muslim world. Watch live, watch offline, create your playlist, watch across all devices. Download now from wherever you usually get your apps. Islam Channel. Watch anytime, anywhere.
Your opportunity to challenge the status quo. You call in and set the narrative. Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Islam Channel. Islam Channel. Join us to discuss hot topics dominating the headline.
How did you ensure that whatever you're writing is true to the core of, a person's experience?
In today's world with so much happening, a lot of people love art, and it's an escapism, but it also speaks to deep-rooted need for people to do art, to make art. All the books that I read with Muslim characters, we were always shoved inside a very small, tight box with no room to breathe.
Need a Trust presents the National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Good evening and a very warm welcome.
We will start this evening's awards ceremony with a recitation of the Quran.
Allah has created all other creation by just the word kun fayakun, which means be and it is. But there's one creation that Allah has left behind, and that is the human being. And that human being is shaped by Allah's hand.
Being a teacher is a very important responsibility. Teachers guide, support, and inspire others.
The National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salaam Britain.
Where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our ummah beautiful.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel.
Five Pillars is not just any ordinary game show. It's a unique platform to deepen our understanding of Islam and strengthen our connection with our faith.
I'm going to win. 50 points. Give that to me.
Oh my God, I don't know.
Pass. Pass as we hold it.
The losing team out that way.
Islam Channel, your gateway to the world of Islam. Inspiring, informing, entertaining. On TV, online, on our brand new state-of-the-art apps. With original content for a Muslim audience and inspirational Islamic programs from all around the Muslim world. Watch live, watch offline, create your playlist, watch across all devices. Download now from wherever you usually get your apps. Islam Channel. Watch anytime, anywhere.
Your opportunity to challenge the status quo. You call in and set the narrative. Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Islam Channel. Islam Channel. Join us to discuss hot topics dominating the headline. Your opportunity to challenge the status quo. You call in and set the narrative. Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Islam Channel. Islam Channel. Join us to discuss hot topics dominating the headline.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel.
Your opportunity to challenge the status quo. You call in and set the narrative. Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Islam Channel. Islam Channel. Join us to discuss hot topics dominating the headline.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel.
Your opportunity to challenge the status quo. You call in and set the narrative. Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Islam Channel. Islam Channel. Join us to discuss hot topics dominating the headline.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel.
Bosnia and Herzegovina is a natural European halal hub. It's a center of excellence for the global halal industry, and it's a natural for Bosnia and Herzegovina to be represented at the first London Halal Forum. We have been engaging with the ICCD and ICHS and with Sheikh Yusuf Halavi for several years now, and we are trying to collaborate on an initiative to establish our country as a place to invest, to enter Europe in the halal industry and to open it up to the European market.
We are very excited to be here because it's the first London Halal Forum. It's the first of its kind in the UK and in Europe, and we think this is an excellent opportunity to exhibit, but also to meet partners, existing partners, new partners. There's a conference in the background where industry experts talk, from halal modest fashion to Sharia compliant financing to halal tourism. So everyone is here, and it's a great opportunity to network, to learn from each other, to connect and to find new contacts.
Our objective is to support businesses all over the world, especially halal investment, through supporting networking, organize B2B meetings, facilitate matching of businesses. In addition, we are delivering other services like free consultation, plus market research, feasibility studies, all of these things. Plus we are facilitating what we can say the paperwork for funding or with financial entities.
We are seeing a lot of friendly faces, a lot of useful panels, some workshops that really benefit the halal industry in general. And I think Bosnia and Herzegovina can be sort of a role model for other countries, because we are a European secular country where halal is not imposed by law or by anything, how other countries can really benefit from halal, at least from the business side. So we are happy to be part of the London Halal Forum, and we will probably be here next year and at all other ICCD and ICH events in the future.
When it comes to trade, the production of halal products happening everywhere, including UK. So governments, not just Muslim majority countries who are big consumers, but even producers such as from Brazil, which is a major exporter, one of the, in fact, largest exporter of halal products, United States, United Kingdom, they are part of this global supply chain of halal trade. Now this event today is being sponsored by or organized by the Islamic Chamber of Commerce, sponsored by a Saudi Arabia-based investment company called Halal Devco, as well as some of the industry partners from Saudi Arabia, which demonstrate some of the challenges and opportunities. From Saudi Arabia side, we have today representing the Muslim world, Muslim majority countries, who are net importers of halal products, meaning even as Muslims, they don't really supply their own halal product, they're dependent. It also creates an opportunity which makes a linkage with the rest of the world. Countries like UK, US, Brazil, etc. Are able to build bridges through halal trade. So one of the themes that's fascinating about this event is halal and tayyib for humanity. Because halal ultimately is to be good, healthy, good to the environment, and tayyib is wholesome and healthy. These are values that are universal. So in London, connecting with the themes of sustainability and environment, this event brings the wider impact of halal, which is not just for Muslims. This event, the London Halal Forum, is part of a global trend on the halal economy, which today, if you think about the core Muslim population of over 2 billion people that require halal products, specifically food, Collectively, that adds today to almost $2.4 trillion of how much food Muslims consume, which is all subject to halal. Obviously, that's significant.
I think it's interesting to see how Saudi is coming here to the UK to see what the market is like, what connections are around, and how I suppose UK businesses can have access to a more global platform. I mean, there's so many different types of businesses here that I didn't even know existed, and I feel like if you're want to be in an Islamic business, it's a great place to network and make connections.
The good thing is that there's a lot of people who have come in from different parts of the world, and it's a really good place for us to learn from their experience, and also to share with them the new technology which we have. So it's a really great space that we can then take this technology to a lot of other countries where halal, especially where we have minorities. So wherever we are a minority, people need good halal food to be delivered to them. And here our product would be able to deliver not only food, but all eco lifestyle of a halal person.
Like the time horizon.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Salaam Britain. Now, if you've just joined us, it's time to talk about money. It's time for Money Matters, our regular segment where we break down the financial topics that affect our everyday lives and make the world of money easier to understand. Before we begin, a quick reminder that today's discussion is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing on this program should be taken as personal, financial or investment advice or used as a recommendation to take any specific financial action. If you're making a financial decision, please seek advice from a qualified professional who can consider your individual circumstances and needs. Joining us this morning are the co-founders of NISBA, Adil Bareski and Ahmed Ayubi. Ahmed Ayubi is a financial advisor at Ansari Financial Planning and co-founder of NISBA. He holds both the CFA Charter and the Islamic Finance qualification with extensive experience in financial planning, investment management and Islamic finance. Adil Bareski is a co-founder of NISBA and a former economics teacher. He has extensive experience in economics, education and Islamic finance, making complex financial topics clear, practical and accessible. Together, they're bringing a wealth of expertise across finance, economics and Islamic finance, helping us better understand the financial issues that are affecting our daily lives. We'd also love for you to be part of the conversation. So in our final segment this morning, after the break, we're going to be opening the phone lines for your questions. So whether you'd like a financial topic explained, have a question about Islamic finance, or want to better understand something you've seen in the news, this is your chance to ask our guests live on air. You can call us or send us your questions via WhatsApp on 0208 011 5786. And we're also putting the number on the screen so that you don't forget. We'll be we're going to try and get as many questions across to them as possible during the program. So please start sending your questions now. With that, it's time to get the conversation underway. Adil, Ahmed, Assalamu alaikum. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, everyone. It's so good to see you all. We haven't been here for a few weeks, so I'm really, really glad to be back, alhamdulillah. If you don't know who we are, my name is Adil and I'm joined with my co-founder.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Ahmed.
And here on this channel, we love to break down those topics that affect all of us. We all think about money. It crosses our mind every single day, whether it's our job, whether it's our kids, whether it's our investments. And we want to help you each fortnight just understanding those topics a little bit better. So Ahmed, what's that topic we're going to cover today, inshallah?
Today is a really interesting one because we're going to cover the topic of risk, and hopefully you can see all sorts of lines going down on the screen to help us indicate what risk really is. And really it's the possibility that your money could go down in value, or even a complete loss of your money when it comes to investing. And hopefully we're going to break it down in a nice and easy way for you all today.
I really hope so. So there's a few things we want to cover, and what we try and tackle each episode is a little part of the investing journey. Now, we have kind of a 6-stage framework that we like to teach, and I think it's a really nice framework for you to think about your money, almost like a halal money management system. And the idea is, if you come out with this system, you know how to manage your paydays, you know how to manage if you get a salary increase, if you get a bonus, or anything happens in your life, maybe you lose your job, you know how to manage your money because you have a very clean framework. So today we're going back to the final part of stage 1, which is risk. We've previously looked at goals, we've looked at budgeting for investment, and now we're going to start understanding where does this all fit into our investment journey. Now, when I think risk, I used to very much think, oh, whoa. I don't want to take any risk with my money. And I think that's probably the general consensus when people think about the word risk.
Yes, that is a reality. When it comes to investing, there is a wide range of the level of risk that you can actually take on. And if we just pull up this little bar to show you, there are investments which are extremely low risk, and there are investments which are quite high risk. And then we have investments which are extreme risk. Generally speaking, we don't talk about investments which are extreme risk, where you can potentially lose all your money over the course of a few years, or even over the course of a week. That does exist when it comes to the whole investing market space. A lot of those types of investment, they won't be Sharia compliant because they have the wrong amount of risk in them, and taking on too much risk as a Muslim when it comes to investing is impermissible.
It's a bit like gambling, and that's why we don't really talk about it. But there's one thing just before we go to the next part is sometimes people think investments are so risky, I'm not interested. But I have a real life example. This here is a £10 million Zimbabwe note. And you might be thinking, well, why are you showing me that? Well, the reality is keeping your money in cash goes down over time. So there is risk just by keeping your cash at home, under the bed, behind the radiator, wherever you keep it in the bank. There's almost a guaranteed risk that this is going to go down in value. One day it might become like this, whereby you need lots of them just to buy a bag of eggs or a box of eggs.
Are you saying because of inflation?
Yes, exactly. So something that we tackled a few weeks ago, there is a certainty that the value of things will go up, or the price will go up, and the value of your money goes down. So we need to make sure that we have this in our mind at all times. Keeping cash may not seem risky, but it is, because you are losing money. So we're going to try and tackle that today. So we have this chart, lovely. What's the next thing that we need to make sure we understand?
We need to understand that there are different investments that we can make as Muslims. They range in the level of risk, from very low risk, so we have things like Islamic savings accounts, all the way up to a high level of risk. And we're not covering an extreme level of risk, but let's cover off a few of them today. So we have savings accounts, low risk, but what this graph also shows is a level of return. And the higher it is up on the chart, the more return you can expect by investing or putting your money into that investment. So savings accounts, you don't make a lot of money.
No, you might only make a few %, but what I will say is with every investment, there is a time and a place, and you'll see that as we go through today's episode. So yes, they are low risk, a low rate of return, but that might be suitable for your circumstances.
Okay, let's go up, and we have this thing called sukuk funds. That sounds confusing.
To be honest, it is confusing, but it is the Islamic version of a bond. And if you're not too sure what that is, you can Google it afterwards, but that's what we need to know for now. We don't actually need to know too much about these things just yet.
And hopefully one that everyone is familiar with, property, the idea of investing into property. And people can start to appreciate the level of risk that comes with investing into property. Generally speaking, when you buy a property, it can go down a bit in value. There can be a problem with the tenants that you have in the property. The property could catch on fire. There are all sorts of risks that comes with investing into property. But predominantly speaking, lots of people do make money in investing into property. So that's something that can help you frame in your mind the level of risk and return of property. And why is there this weird black line that goes ups and down from property?
Such a good question. So we have here property investment. Now, you might be thinking of a specific type of property, but property is quite a wide-ranging investment. You can buy a 2-bedroom flat in central London as an investment, or you can buy a huge commercial 10-story derelict building and try and turn it into a fancy hotel. Those two things have a very different risk and reward relationship. So don't think all property is the same. And that's why we try and demonstrate it by saying there's a bit of a scale. So we like to have generally property maybe as a medium-ish risk, but it can vary massively, whether you're investing in the UK or maybe you're investing back in Bangladesh or Pakistan. It's a very different risk and reward relationship.
Okay, and then we have this thing called commodities. That's when we're talking about gold, silver, platinum, palladium, potentially even oil. These you can invest into in a Sharia-compliant way, and lots of people think, oh, gold. Why are you saying that gold is quite a risky investment? Gold isn't that risky. I have it on my wrist. It doesn't go down in value. Is that right?
That is not right. And as we've seen, just in the last year alone, gold has dropped around 20 to 30% in value. And for large periods of history, it has gone down even more.
Hopefully we'll give a graphical representation of that later for everyone. And at the end, we have this thing called an equity fund. And an equity fund is just when you invest into different businesses. And businesses, as we are all aware, can sometimes go bankrupt. Investing in businesses are risky. But at the same time, there's lots of businesses that increase a lot in value. Isn't that right?
It's very true. It is very true. You've heard about some businesses that have grown by 1,000% over the last few years, whether it's Microsoft or Apple or Nvidia. Obviously, there's some things for us to consider, but remember, we're not talking about individual companies here. We're talking about a collection of companies. But one quick reminder, Ahmed, with all of these investments, do they fall into the extreme category that we showed at the beginning?
Generally, no. Because we're talking about not investing into individual businesses, we're talking about investing into many businesses at the same time. Gold, again, is another example of investment that won't go down to zero. Sukuk, we talk about sukuk funds. Even if we don't know what they are, it's investing into many of them at the same time. So the correct word is diversified when it comes to that investment, and you're investing into lots of little ones in that investment class, or the correct terminology, asset class. So why don't we look at a graph. Before we look at the graph even, let's look at a short table which shows us a low-risk investment, an Islamic savings account, and a high-risk investment, an equity fund. And let's compare some of the numbers that we are seeing for each of them to see how they compare.
All right, you be the equity fund and I'll be the boring savings account.
All right, what is your worst month that you've had in the last 10 years for a savings account?
Well, unfortunately, I made no money in that month. I was flat at 0%. What about you?
I was down 10%.
Ooh, not great.
That is not great at all.
Right.
Well, what about your best month? Give me your best month.
Well, my best month in a single month, I made 0.4%, which is not that exciting, but it went up.
Okay, good.
How about you?
I made 9.3%, so obviously I'm much, much better.
Okay, how about your worst year? So a consecutive 12-month stretch?
Down 8.3%, unfortunately.
Well, me over here, I only lost I gained 0.3% in a single year. So you can see already that a high-risk investment versus a low-risk investment, they do have very different characteristics over that time frame. What about your best year?
30% pretty much.
Whoa.
I'm quite chuffed with myself.
I can't really compete with that. Only 4% on my side. But like I said, there's a time and a place.
And we see for an overall 10-year period, investing into an equity fund would have generated you a much better return than a savings account. So why would anybody bother with a savings account? Hopefully you've seen with some of the numbers that sometimes you may have lost a lot of money if you invested into an equity fund. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, we have a graphical representation of this coming up. Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes, we do. So up here in the red line, we have an equity fund, so, an investment that invests into many different businesses. And down here, we have Sukuk, which is that low-risk investment that we saw back there. And hopefully, you can see there's a huge difference in the way they move over time. This is roughly a 2-year period. Now, what are the obvious things that we see on this chart? The equity fund did absolutely amazing during this couple of year period, up 100, 120% at some point. But there were times, if we consider the beginning of the year, down to that dip into 2025, where we were down roughly 20% in that time period. That's pretty big. Do you see the swings in a Sukuk fund?
No, and I think that's one of the big takeaways you should take away from this. You can see here the investment into the Sukuk fund, it does fluctuate, but nowhere near the same scale as the equity fund does. So, Ahmed, what's one simple takeaway that people can, use this information? Well, is it worthwhile, for example, sorry to cut you up, is it worthwhile, does it make sense to invest into, let's say, an equity fund like this if I have a really short-term goal?
Well, let's consider, if you are investing for the course of 6 months, you're putting some money away to pay school fees, you're saving up money for Hajj, you want to keep it somewhere. Consider, you could have started investing into the equity fund in, July 2024, and then to sell it in 2025, you might have been down 20% in that period. It would have been far better for you to have invested into Sukuk than into equities in that period. However, that period could have been this period. But because you don't know how equities are going to do in that period, it would have been better for you to choose a lower risk investment.
And it's not that you don't know, it's that no one knows.
No one knows.
So don't think that it's a skill-based thing here. This is very much no one knows.
And let's, why don't we add gold to that chart? So gold is this lovely gold line. And let's try and dispel the myth that people think that gold is a low risk investment.
So as you can see, we've got the Sukuk line, nice and stable. The equity line moving around crazy like a roller coaster. But gold, somewhat similar in its fluctuations. Have a look. In some periods it's up more than 100%. But that, from there down to here, we're talking the best part of almost a 40% drop. That is not something that is representative of a low-risk investment. A low-risk investment does not move around like that. That is a crazy, volatile investment.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. So we've kind of got to grips a little bit with the idea that different investments, they have different levels of risk on them. So now what we want to try and decide is what level of risk should I be choosing for me? Should I choose something on the low end? Should I choose something in the medium, in the middle? Or should I choose something on the upper end of the risk scale? And actually, there's a framework to follow when it comes to choosing the level of risk for you. So why don't we delve a bit into that framework, starting off with the first thing, the most obvious thing when it comes to risk. What do people base their level of risk on?
It's very interesting because maybe you've heard of an investment platform called Wahid. When you start and you open up your platform with Wahid, you're asked a very simple question. Which level of risk do you want to go with? And generally, people base that decision off this alone. What do I want in terms of my risk? And you can see here, there's two little graphs that kind of demonstrate, this is a very stable movement, and here we've got some bigger fluctuations. And you might be off the type that, I like risk. I like taking risk with my money. I'm very happy with that. Or you might be someone like, no. I've learned the hard way, or I've been told, just stay away from risk, keep it boring, keep it simple. So you have a level of risk that you are potentially inclined towards. This is your want. Yeah, think about how spicy do you like your food? How much appetite do you have for that level of risk?
Yeah, that's great. And I think sometimes people may default to a certain level of risk because they might see, oh, if I choose a high level of risk with my investments, I can make more money. But the reality is, especially over a shorter time period, you could lose a lot of money. So great to understand your appetite. There are many questionnaires online which will help you understand what your appetite for risk is. Just search online, what is my risk appetite? There are many questionnaires, and it can help you discover what yours actually is. But let's look at some potentially more important things to base your appetite on, to base your level of risk on, because appetite, though it is important, it is not the most important thing.
So what is far more important is understanding your capacity to take on risk. What is your ability to handle that risk? Think when you're about to invest into something, imagine. So we know this person, and they recently traveled to Bali or Thailand, and they did the normal touristy thing, and they rented mopeds and mopeds. Anyway, broke both of his arms, had to go to a private hospital, and as a result, had to pay for the surgery on the spot, and that was £15,000. That was a lot of money that they had to pay on the spot. Now imagine, if they hadn't been saving, they didn't have any savings, what would they have had to do? They might have had to sell some of their investments. And if you had a 10-year goal for your investments, but now this thing has happened and you weren't adequately prepared, you might have had to sell your investments after 6 months. And like Ahmed showed you on that graph, it could be the worst 6 months that's happened for equities if you were investing potentially in the wrong way. And so your capacity is things like how much do you have in savings? How stable is your job? How many people are you looking after at home? How many people rely on you? Or maybe you live in a household whereby at any one point someone might say, oh, I need to borrow some money. So think, what is your capacity to take on risk? And this is a really important thing to consider when it comes to your risk.
Yeah, you really don't want to sell your investments before the planned time that you've set out at the beginning to say, oh, I want to sell my investments in 10 years, because then you can select the level of risk that's appropriate for you. But then if something comes up and you've got to sell them, well, it didn't quite go to plan. So that's capacity. So these two levels of risk, these two measures of risk are personal to you. Your risk appetite and your risk capacity. There are some levels of risk that are relevant to the time horizon of the goal, and that is what we're going to look at now. This is what we like to call the appropriate level of risk for you to choose for your investments. So there are two things to consider. What are they, Adil?
So your time horizon, which I'd say is probably the most important thing, and the second part is your flexibility. Remember what we said. When you're investing, you're not investing based on, oh, I just want to make more money. You invest because you have a goal. What is your goal? Is it Hajj? Is it buying a new car? Is it going on holiday? What is your goal? Make sure you have your financial goals laid out very nice and clearly. I know it can be difficult sometimes, but try your best. That will determine your time horizon, because if I'm saving for my kids, then I know I have, let's say, 20 years. But if I'm saving for Hajj, which is in now, 11 months away, and that's a fixed deadline, that massively alters my time horizon. So time horizon is the most important thing that I think about when it comes to risk. What's the second thing?
The second thing is how flexible is your goal. Now, we saw that investments can go up and down over time. What you don't want to do is be forced to sell at a time when the markets are down. And sometimes we might have a goal which is very fixed in terms of timeline, such as perhaps paying school fees when kids go to secondary school if you want to take them to a private school. The money has to be ready on that date. Whereas other goals, potentially maybe buying a house, you might think, well, I could buy it next year, or I could buy it in 3 years. So you're quite flexible. So you can respond to how the market moves sometimes with your investments. So if it has gone down 1 year, you could just say, oh, let me wait it out a bit, wait for the market to recover, because I'm quite flexible with that goal. So there are two big considerations, really big considerations when it comes to choosing the right level of risk. But hopefully what you are taking away at this point is that when you have a goal which is quite distant in the future, choosing a high level of risk might be appropriate. And high level of risk doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose all your money. It just means there's going to be lots of fluctuations along the way. And if you had a risk appetite which was quite low, you might see a big drop, get too scared, sell.
Which we've seen. We've
seen it many, many times.
People really are basing their investments on all of the wrong decisions. They're basing it on how they feel. They're basing it on hearsay. They're not basing it on a very clear plan.
Let's consider someone in the opposite scenario. They are investing for a very long time, but they chose a very low level of risk. What's the problem there?
The idea is, because you're taking such a low level of risk, you're going to get such a low level of return, and it potentially doesn't make sense. Well, you have time, and you don't worry so much about fluctuations along the way. It makes sense to take on more risk. For example, when I invest on behalf of my kids, it would not make sense to put money into a savings account. It's probably one of the worst financial decisions I could make. I'm very happy to take on risk because the time horizon is long, and so it means I can afford to take on more risk.
Absolutely.
So let's put this all together now. We've gone through quite a few things, but let's try and really summarize. So we said, you might come out with, after all of this research, you've done a few questionnaires on your risk appetite, your risk capacity, you've sat down, you've thought about your goals and your time horizon, and you've understood. You might come out with and say, you know what, there is an appropriate level of risk I should be taking, and maybe it's towards the higher end. Okay, great. What's the next step? What do we need to layer into that?
Well, you need to consider your capacity and your appetite as well. Because even if the level of risk that's appropriate for you is quite high, if you don't like risk, you do run the risk of selling your investments early because you got too scared. But let's layer on something else first. Let's layer on, I think it's capacity first. It is. So our capacity, not very high. So what do? We lower the level of risk we're taking a little bit. Because remember, the main thing we base it on is the time horizon and flexibility of the goal. But capacity is also important.
And then the final part, remember, which we said most people make their decisions. So remember those people that go onto platforms like Wahed or Simply Ethical and they choose an investment profile, they choose it based on how they feel about risk. So they choose it based on their appetite. And so what they might do is they might lower it because actually, you know what, they're just a bit scared of risk, and that's fine. You need to make sure that you can sleep at night. So what we've done here is we've lowered it again based on their appetite. So maybe you've done a questionnaire and you've come out with a lower risk appetite.
Wonderful. So what you might be thinking is, if I understand my level of risk, my appetite, my capacity, my time horizon, they're all quite high or long, distant in the future, you might think, well, investing in a risky way is correct for me. Or you might be the opposite. I have a short-term goal and my capacity isn't very high, my appetite isn't very high, I want to take on a low level of risk. Is it correct to think that based on these different investments we've shown on the chart, if I want a low level of risk, I should put all my money towards the lower end in a single asset class? Or is it a case maybe where I spread it across different things?
It's more of the latter, and it's a great point. Sometimes people like to pigeonhole themselves. They're saying, oh, I have a high risk goal, I just go with high risk. Or I have a low risk goal, I just go low risk. It's not true. You can have an element of diversification. So you can invest into other things. The main thing is when you look at it, where is the majority of the money? Is it in lower risk investments or is it in higher risk investments? So a lower risk goal or a short-term goal, genuinely we're looking at the majority of the money potentially going into these lower risk investments.
Now the technical term for this spreading your eggs in different baskets is asset allocation. Just means how much of your money do you allocate to different asset classes. And that's something we're going to get into in the coming weeks, inshallah, but we're just introducing the topic today. But hopefully we have some lovely takeaways for today, Adil.
So one of the main things is when you think about risk, you might want a certain level of risk, but it doesn't necessarily mean that is the correct amount of risk you should be taking with your investments. Generally speaking, there is a very simple relationship between risk and reward. So if you ever hear about an investment and they say it's a very high level of reward and there's a low level of risk, that means it's a scam, because that's not how the world works. So be very, very careful. And the final thing is you have to be super careful. Don't ever base your investment decisions based on what you've seen on TV or online or what someone else is doing. It has to be deeply personal to you. Now we've tried to package it all up, but let's give some real examples, maybe that people can crystallize this today. So you have a 1-year goal, Ahmed. People will often think, I have a short-term goal, I need to grow my money as quick as possible to achieve that goal. What's wrong with that?
In reality, if you're trying to grow your money as quickly as possible, you are taking on risk, because something with a high level of return has a high level of risk. And in that 1-year period, even though that investment has been shown to grow consistently over the long term, in that 1-year period, that investment might drop 20, 30%. And we've seen that time and time again when it comes to investing into the stock market. Stock market has historically shown to grow time and time again. But did it grow during COVID-19?
No, it shrank.
Did it grow during the financial crisis?
No, it shrank.
There are many individual years, or even couples of years, where the stock market didn't grow. But if you look at a long-term trend for the stock market, it's grown very nicely.
And genuinely, if you remember why, it's because we're investing into businesses from around the world, and generally speaking, businesses will grow over time. So, hopefully you've understood and you've taken away some key concepts. Remember, we are going to be answering your questions live after the break, so inshallah the number is on the screen, or hopefully you can remember it. But please do ask in and call. Don't be afraid to call in. We're happy to answer your questions. So today we're talking about risk. Remember, you're not basing your risk purely on how you feel. There's other things you need to take away. So inshallah, you have enjoyed that segment. After the break, we're going to start going through some questions that you have already sent in and some other ones that are going to be coming in live.
Assalamu alaikum for now.
Nida Trust presents the National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Good evening and a very warm welcome.
We will start this evening's awards ceremony with a recitation of the Quran.
Allah has created all other creation by just the word kun fayakun, which means be and it is. But there's one creation that Allah has left behind, and that is the human being. And that human being is shaped by Allah's hand.
Being a teacher is a very important responsibility. Teachers guide, support, and inspire others.
The National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Nida Trust presents the National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Good evening and a very warm welcome.
We will start this evening's awards ceremony with a recitation of the Quran.
Allah has created all other creation by just the word kun fayakun, which means be and it is. But there's one creation that Allah has left behind, and that is the human being. And that human being is shaped by Allah's hand.
Being a teacher is a very important responsibility. Teachers guide, support, and inspire others.
The National Muslim Teachers Awards 2026.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salaam Britain,
where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our ummah beautiful.
How did you ensure that whatever you're writing is true to the core of, a person's experience?
In today's world with so much happening, a lot of people love art, and that's it's an escapism, but it also speaks to deep-rooted need for people to do art, to make art. All the books that I read with Muslim characters, we were always shoved inside a very small, tight box with no room to breathe.
There was a lot to take in. We tried to get through it as quickly and as friendly as possible, but we understand obviously there's going to be some questions. So if you do have a question, there are 3 ways I think you can get in touch. You can either call the number, which is on the screen, 020-3011-5786. You can also WhatsApp that same number, and I believe we're also streaming live on YouTube, so you can comment on YouTube and we can answer those as well. But alhamdulillah, there's already been quite a few questions come in, so we're going to start tackling those. But if someone wants to call in live, please do, and we will try and answer it on the spot. So, Ahmed, there's a lot of questions here. They look somewhat challenging, I'll be honest, but let's see what we can do. All right, here's a really, really good one. Now, this is from Emina in Leicester. Now, Emina says, everyone says property is safe as houses, but what's the catch when you get into investing into property? So what are the risks? Because sometimes I think it's hard to picture the risks of investing into property.
Yes. The first thing you have to remember is there are a few different ways to invest into property. You can be purchasing land for a development on that land. You can be buying a property just to let it out. You can be buying a property to split it up into lots of little properties and doing HMO. So the risks are really specific to the type of property investment that you are doing. Generally, when we speak about property investing, we don't talk about the property investing where you go out and actually buy a property, because we see that as a bit more of a business. You're involved in the day-to-day, finding the property, finding the land, doing all the legal work, finding the tenants, all that stuff. There are ways to invest into property online in a Sharia-compliant way, and there are a number of providers out there. But investing in property does come with risk. Property prices, if we consider the UK, generally speaking, they have gone up. But have they always gone up in every single instance?
Or in every borough?
No, they haven't. Let's consider another thing. Generally speaking, property is quite illiquid. What do I mean by illiquid?
So imagine you want to take your money out of your investment and you want to go spend it. To do that with a property, it would take you quite some time. So imagine you had a physical property that you own, but you decided you want to sell up and you want to move abroad. It would take a few months to sell that property and get the cash out.
Yeah, maybe even a year to get the best price. And if you are forced with a need for that money, you're either going to have to borrow against that property, which there may not be any Sharia compliant options, or you might be forced to do a fire sale, which is sell it below market value. In addition to that, obviously sometimes in some areas there can be issues with the land that the property is based on, or the house could catch on fire. There are all sorts of risks when it comes to investing in property. I'm not saying that you should stay away from property investing. All it is in reality is, as with all investments, there are risks. And that's why property, when we showed our chart earlier, there is a risk and reward relationship, and generally it's somewhere in the middle.
You know, it's interesting. We saw an article on the BBC not too long ago about a school, I can't remember where it was, where they built this brand new school. They were using porta cabins for the last few years, and finally the school was ready. But then after doing an assessment, the land was not structurally safe, so they had to demolish the school and rebuild it again. Imagine that was an investment that you'd put your money in. You know, there's some considerable costs that have to go into demolishing, rebuilding, replanning, getting permission all over again, or potentially going through a different cycle now to get a stronger infrastructure. There are risks with property, and like Ahmed said, it just depends on what type of property are you going for.
We have a question that's come in, and it says, I understand my risk level now, but how do I actually change my investments to match it? So you understand your risk level. How do they change their investments to match it? You have to remember that there are different investments with different levels of risk. So if you understand what level of risk you have now, you have to really understand what level of risk is appropriate for you, not just what level of risk you have now. If you've understood what level of risk is appropriate for you, and you know the different asset classes that you can invest into with their different levels of risk, the idea is then to combine them together by selling or adjusting your current investments to create a new overall level of risk. Now, obviously, at times this can be quite difficult, this can be quite complicated, so sometimes you should seek the help of a financial advisor, or go out and do a bit more research yourself first to try and understand what you actually need to do. But you can create almost any level of risk given the common different investments which we covered today.
I think if you think about it simply, like we always say, think about your goals. So imagine if ideally you could sit down, write down your goals, and you might have, remember, you might come out with different kind of risk profiles for each of those goals. So you might have, one of your goals is for retirement in 30 years. So you've sat down, you say, okay, this is a long-term goal. I understand that is where you potentially take on more risk. Then you factor in your appetite. You say, well, you know what, I'm happy, I like to take on risk, so I keep it high. And my capacity to take on risk for that particular investment is also high. So great, now I know that for this particular goal, I'm going to go for more risk, higher risk investments. So I'm going to be thinking potentially in the equity market or commodities. I might have a secondary goal, which is it's short term. Let's say my daughter is getting married next year. It's definitely happening. I need to pay the money. Great, so now I have a 1-year goal. It's short term. I know with short term goals, I can't take on too much risk. So I go down the scale. I know my appetite is somewhat high and my capacity is high, so that's fine. But I understand generally the most important thing is the time horizon. So now my secondary goal, which is the wedding in 12 months, I'm going to go for a lower risk profile. So I'm going to be thinking more savings account, Islamic savings accounts, and I'm going to be thinking more sukuk funds. So try and think of it in a really practical way around what is it that you're trying to achieve. And then I think the rest of it will naturally kind of fit in.
This is a good question. If my level of risk changes, should I sell my existing investments straight away? This is a very interesting one. Now, remember, your level of risk is generally based on your goals. Now, if your goals completely change, that's when your level of risk might change. That is why you have to put in some serious thought into what your goals are. Obviously, goals do change over time. Life events happen. Things do change. But it's a bit like, imagine you're driving from London and you're going to Edinburgh. You're on the way, you're past Manchester, you've gone up to Bradford, and now all of a sudden, plans change, we're going to Cardiff. It doesn't really make sense to keep driving towards Edinburgh because you're most of the way there. But really, what you should have considered is that there is a chance that on the journey towards Edinburgh, there could be a change of plan to go to Cardiff. In which case, you should have perhaps said, I'm not going to leave yet. I'm not going to start driving the car until I'm quite certain or quite sure that I'm not going to have to change. Otherwise, I've wasted all that journey up to Edinburgh. So there are some things to think about. You can change your level of risk when your goals change. But it is a tough one. But absolutely, if you have a long-term goal and all of a sudden all your goals are short-term, it's not appropriate to be in risky investments.
It's very, very sage advice. I like the example of Edinburgh and Cardiff. I'm a bit geographically challenged, but I was picturing it like, what? Yeah, okay, does it make sense?
Edinburgh's up there and Cardiff is down there. That's
I would need a Google map in front of me so I can really see it. But I get it. I get the point. It's a very strong one. Remember, guys, please do call in. You can call in on the number which is on the screen, which is 0203 011 5786. You can WhatsApp in if you don't feel confident enough to call, or you can even comment on YouTube because we're streaming live on YouTube. So we have another question here, which is from Sarah in Manchester. Sarah says, I'm the only earner at home. Should my risk profile be more cautious? Now, if you remember, Sarah, there's a few things to consider in your risk profile. It's time horizon for the goals, risk capacity, and risk appetite. Now, generally speaking, what you're talking about here, where you're the only earner at home, is something that is going to affect your risk capacity. So naturally speaking, yes, that is a very good thing to be thinking that maybe I need to be a little bit more cautious, because doesn't mean I have to be more cautious with my investments, but maybe I have to make some additional planning. So maybe I have to build up a larger emergency fund, or maybe I have to be a bit more stricter with my goals potentially. Anything else you'd want to add on that?
Yeah, all you have to remember is that if you're the only earner in a household, people rely on you for money, and you don't know when they might ask you for a bit more money because something happened which is really important. And you have to really be in a position where you're not forced into selling your investments because of that, and that can cause you to lower the level of risk you're taking with your investments. It's a very good consideration.
Okay, so we had another question come in. How often should I review my risk level? Well, generally speaking, if we look at those three things, so time horizon for my goals, appetite and capacity, would you say your appetite towards risk really changes, Ahmed?
Not really. I mean, you are born a certain way, generally speaking, or you develop to be a certain way. So your appetite doesn't change too much over time.
Okay, great. So we're not going to really review that because we are just the way we are.
Okay.
Number two, my time horizon for my goals. Would I need to reconsider those?
Well, you should remember that every 30-year goal at some point becomes a 5-year goal because you're 5 years away from it. So absolutely, an annual review of your investments and your goals are very important because all long-term goals essentially eventually become short-term goals, and you should adjust the risk accordingly when you get closer to the goal. That's why if you have a pension, you may have noticed if you've read some pension documents about your pension that they decrease the level of risk that you have in your pension portfolio as you approach retirement, and it makes sense to do that with your investments as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So if you were to do a little bit digging into the pension, you'll notice when you're younger, most of your investments are invested into the stock market, generally speaking. There's obviously lots of different pensions that we've spoken about previously. But as you get older and older and older, you move away from stock market because remember we said equity funds generally are higher risk and they don't necessarily make sense for shorter term goals. So they move away from the equity funds and they come down that chart that we showed you.
And the other big thing that can change over time is your capacity.
Yes.
Your capacity to take on risk. Maybe you have children, maybe you get married, maybe you take on financing for a property. All these things can affect your capacity to take on risk. So it is important to consider. It's not going to change on a weekly basis, but absolutely once a year when you're calculating your zakah, looking at your investments, things like that, absolutely you should be considering what level of risk is appropriate for you.
I really, really like this question here because I think it's something that we tried to touch on right at the beginning. And the question is, I'm young but naturally cautious. Should I still take more risk because I have time? Obviously, we have to be careful of giving financial advice, but generally speaking, if you are young and if your goals are far away and you've considered your capacity, then it might make more sense, definitely, to be considering more risk, providing that the goal is a long-term goal. That's generally the most important thing. It's not necessarily your age, it's more about how long is it until you want to achieve your goal, because sometimes people are very much like, well, I just want to grow my wealth. Remember, from an Islamic point of view, the idea is money is a means to an end. It's not just, I want to be rich. It's, I need the money to buy a house. I want the money to go on Hajj. So what is the timeline for that goal? And that will kind of determine the amount of risk that you should be taking.
Yeah, it's a difficult position to be in when your risk appetite, how much risk you want to take on, and the appropriate level of risk is not in sync. Now, as a financial advisor, one thing that I do with my clients is they fill out a form and it helps me understand what their risk appetite is. If I understand that their risk appetite is low, but they should be investing in a more risky way, what I will do is I will try and coach that client and help them understand that high risk doesn't mean you're going to lose all your money. It just means there's going to be volatility along the way, and that will help your investments grow more over time. So I would really encourage you, if you have a mismatch between your appetite and the appropriate level of risk, is push on education.
Yeah.
Learn a bit more about the different investments and how they move, and why sometimes risky investments, the type of risky investments we talk about today, not investing in your family member's business, that is separate, the type of investments we talked about today in terms of risky, how they work and what risk actually means.
Exactly, yeah. Try not to... we're not doing today's session so that you hear the word risk and you run 100 miles. The idea is you understand what we say by risk when it comes to investing and you embrace it where necessary, because it is important that you embrace risk sometimes. But remember, we're not talking about extreme risk in any scenario here. We're not talking about things that can go up 100% in a day and down to zero.
Why don't we just touch on one of the highest risk investments we spoke about today, which is an equity fund. Equity funds, they invest into many businesses from around the world and generally some of the biggest businesses in the world. So think of some of the biggest companies that you can think of in the UK and abroad. Now, what are the chances of all those businesses, let's take 300 businesses, at the same time going down to a value of absolutely zero?
Yeah, very, very minimal.
Even in the financial crisis in 2008, there were a few bankruptcies, but generally speaking, the government will step in to support if a big part of their economy is going downhill, as the government did with the Royal Bank of Scotland when it was going down during the financial crisis. There is going to be very few instances where many companies at the same time all go down, and when you're invested in a diversified way, across many different companies, considering the riskiest asset class, you may have a situation where you're going down 30, 40% in a year, and then the economy switches and the all starts to grow again. But the most risky investment we spoke about today, equity funds, if you're investing in a globally diversified way, generally you will not have an instance where that will go down to zero.
Okay, we've got another question here. Please remember you can call in, you can WhatsApp in, and you can also comment on YouTube. But we have another question here which says, can someone with a low income still have a higher risk profile? An interesting one.
An interesting one, but remember, what are you considering with that question? When you say, can someone with a low income is something which affects your capacity to take on risk. Okay, remember, there are other things to consider, and of course, the most important thing to consider when you're choosing a level of risk.
Time horizon until your goal.
So absolutely, yes, you can have a lower income and have a higher risk profile for certain things. If you are young and you're investing for retirement, that is a very long-term goal. So that's what you should base your level of risk on.
You know what will be a really interesting activity? If you have started investing at home, I want you to go back and do a little bit of reflection on your investments. If you opened up a Wahed profile, go have a look. Which profile did you pick? Was it high risk, low risk? And does that match your goals, your appetite, and your capacity to take on risk? Or maybe you've started investing by yourself in other platforms. Do those investments reflect what we've kind of covered today? It'd be interesting to know, and please let us know.
Yeah, remember, you will have different goals. For example, you may have a goal in 2 years to do a certain thing and another goal in 30 years for retirement. So having different pots of money for different goals can be appropriate. Yeah. I have one for my pension and I have one for my kids that I'm going to give them in a few years. They're invested in very dissimilar ways. And sometimes it can be nice when you separate your investments like that depending on the goal. But sometimes you can't do that and you just have one big pot of money and you're putting all the money into it. But then it can be a bit more confusing to match a specific goal with a specific level of risk.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. And I guess one of the big natural questions will be, okay, but I need to understand these investments a bit more so that I can make an informed decision. And luckily for you, on the coming up episodes, we're going to start tackling those different halal investments. So we're going to be looking at Islamic savings accounts. We're going to be looking at sukuk funds in more detail. We're going to be looking at property and all of the different ways that you can invest into property in a Sharia-compliant manner. We're going to be looking at gold and silver and other commodities. People love that one. And then we were going to be tackling the stock market again. So do make sure that you tune into the future episodes as well. But let's go back to, we have a time for a few more questions, inshallah. Now, here is a very, very interesting one. I've never really thought of it like this, but Omar in Glasgow said, how is a single stock or a single business riskier than a fund with 500 stocks in it?
Okay, let's consider a company like Tesco.
All right.
Okay, this is an individual company that you can invest into. And then we have another basket of 500 companies, and we're going to compare them. If you invest just into one company, let's say Tesco, are you worried about what the CEO does?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, are you worried about the branding of Tesco?
Absolutely.
The public perception of Tesco?
Always.
There's so many different worries about investing into that individual. So many different things could go wrong. The Tesco brand could absolutely be decimated.
Sell horse meat again.
Absolutely decimated in the course of just 1 week. But now let's consider, instead of just investing into Tesco, what could they do instead?
Maybe invest into all of the supermarkets in the UK.
Wonderful. So now we're not just worried about the performance of Tesco. Now we are concerned about how the supermarket sector as a whole does. We're no longer worried about the CEO of Tesco making bad decisions, because that might benefit the businesses of Asda, Morrison's, all the other supermarkets. So wonderful. So now you are diversified within an industry. But, Adel, what if the whole supermarket sector does badly?
It's not great for us.
It's not great. So why don't we go up a level, and instead of investing into one sector, why don't we invest into all the sectors of different companies in the UK?
Well, that's a great idea.
So now we're not worried about the supermarket sector. We're not worried about the aerospace sector. We're not worried about the financial services sector. Great. But what are we worried about?
We're worried about the UK now.
Okay. And sometimes the government of the UK may make decisions which are not business friendly, or some environmental disaster happens in the UK. So bad things could happen to the UK. Either let's take this to its ultimate form. How can we be the most diversified and remove those little pockets of risk when it comes to investing into businesses?
Okay, so I don't want to invest into a single company because I'm worried about an individual company. I don't want to invest into an industry because there's still some risk there. And I don't want to invest into just one country because there's still some risk there. So the natural next step is I want to invest into the whole world. I want to invest into large businesses from around the globe.
Yes. Now you're not worried about an individual company, a sector, an industry, a country. You are diversified across the globe. Now, if you are diversified across the globe, does that mean that every year you're going to make money and the globe just grows every single year?
I wish, but no, we've seen real life examples where the globe does not grow every single year. We had the 2008 financial crisis.
We had COVID-19, we had when Trump came in with his tariffs. There are many instances where the globe doesn't naturally grow, but it dips a little bit. And then after that little dip, it continues to develop and grow. Population, in general, grows year on year. The value of money goes down year on year. And all of these extra factors, technological advancement, they cause the value of these companies to go up over time. But there are certain instances where we see little dips.
Yeah, and that's the main thing that we want you to take away from today is there is risk in investments, and understanding those risks really makes sense that we invest in the right way. Because, you know, without being harsh, there is a wrong way to invest. And we've seen, and we get lots of messages every single day, and unfortunately people are jumping straight into investing with, I've heard this is a good investment, let me put my money into that. And there's just so many things wrong with that.
Or I've seen this investment has gone up the most.
Yeah.
Let me put all my money in that. Little do they know they're choosing an investment with a very high level of risk.
Might be completely inappropriate to them as an individual. It's like going online, finding a gym program, downloading it and just copying it, even though that one is to build muscle and you're trying to lose weight.
Yeah, we saw many people fall into this trap with the rise of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin, it went up a lot in price. A lot of people put their money into it, not understanding that it went up a lot. Now it means it's very risky. If it's very risky, it can also go down a lot. Lots of people lost a lot of money investing in the crypto market purely because a lack of understanding of the amount of risk that you're taking on when it comes to investing into things like that.
So, final reminder of what is most important. Number one, consider the timeline of your goals. Number two, try and do a little bit of maybe a questionnaire to understand your capacity to take on risk. Number three, do a questionnaire to understand your appetite towards risk. And if you want to do this as a family or as a couple, maybe it's a good exercise as well, do it separately and then do it together, because you're going to sit down with those goals, and it's really, really important that you are investing based on your financial goals. So the risk is an important part of investing. We're not saying stay away from it, we're saying embrace it. But inshallah, that has helped you understand a core part of investing, I think.
Yes, yes. And obviously, you cannot do that whole exercise in isolation. You also have to understand the level of risk of the actual investments that you're taking on. And that's why, inshallah, in the coming weeks, we're going to cover the different asset classes, the different things that you can invest into as a Muslim, one by one.
And all the little nuances that you need to consider.
Yes.
But that is all from us today. So Jazakallah khair for staying with us. We really hope you enjoyed it. Please do, feel free to comment and, throw in more questions at us next time. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
How incredibly insightful was that? I certainly learned a few things this morning, which I didn't think I would. So thank you very much to the brothers that are facilitating this. And inshallah, we look forward to seeing them again next week and learning much, much more. And that brings us to the end of today's program. Thank you all for joining us this morning and being part of yet another edition of Salaam Britain. A special thank you to Irfan Ali for bringing us the latest news, headlines, and to Adil Bareski and Ahmed Ayubi from NISBA for helping us explore the financial topics discussed in today's Money Matters segment. And of course, thank you to you, everyone who got involved in sending your questions and messages. Your contributions are what makes the program so engaging and worthwhile. Now, if you'd like to get in touch with us, whether you'd like to appear on the show, suggest a guest, share a story, or recommend a topic for discussion, we'd love to hear from you. You can pop us an email on sb@islamchannel.tv. And if you're passionate about food and have a recipe or culinary tradition you'd like to share with our viewers, do get in touch. We're always looking for new voices and flavors to feature on the program. From all of us here in front of the screen and behind the screen at Salaam Britain, thank you very much for your company. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay blessed. Assalamu alaikum.
السلامة.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel.
Five Pillars is not just any ordinary game show. It's a unique platform to deepen our understanding of Islam and strengthen our connection with our faith.
We came to win.
50 points. Give that to me.
Oh my God, I don't know.
Pass. Pass as well.
The losing team out that way.
Islam Channel, your gateway to the world of Islam. Inspiring, informing, entertaining. On TV, online, on our brand new state-of-the-art apps. With original content for a Muslim audience and inspirational Islamic programs from all around the Muslim world. Watch live, watch offline, create your playlist, watch across all devices. Download now from wherever you usually get your apps. Islam Channel. Watch anytime, anywhere.
أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا.
Join our renowned reciters